Hello everybody and welcome to another showcase for Halo Reach Slipspace. Today we're taking a look at the ADR-class Frigate for the Covenant. This is a brand new ship with a completely new design. This is not an existing design in the franchise. This was a custom model made by myself. The ADR-class Frigate is the new escort vessel for the Covenant lineup. The SDV Corvette has been reassigned to a support role. I will show a little bit about that later on in the video too. But as for the ADR, it is armed with a plasma torpedo array, prow-mounted beam emitters, which you can see two are in these ventral pods here, and one is at the prow. And it is also armed with defense lasers. This ship is not equipped with any strike craft. It's not capable of carrying any ground troops. It is a dedicated fleet escort vessel. So in terms of size, the ship is slightly bigger than the Covenant Corvette. It comes in at 1,178 meters in length, which makes it also a little bit longer than the UNSC cruisers, the Halcyon and the Marathon. So I've jumped into the ship here, and the first thing you might notice is that I have made some quality of life adjustments to the hood. Each weapon now displays info on how to operate them. So with the plasma torpedoes, it tells you to tap for regular torpedoes and hold for the enhanced. There's the enhanced, there's the regular. And this is the same for every weapon. So our beam emitters, you can zoom, fire, pulse lasers, tap for the lasers, and you might also see there's a secondary function to the defense lasers now. We'll get to that in a little bit. So as I said, the primary armament of course is the plasma torpedoes. This is the same for all but one of the Covenant ships. We've seen them before. This next weapon, the beam emitters, is one introduced to this class and is only shared with one other ship so far, which is the Ket pattern battlecruiser, the silver one. And these are beam emitters. These are essentially like a much longer range version of the defense lasers. So you can see they travel quite fast. They allow you to engage at quite a distance, the same distance as plasma torpedoes, but you can see that they can overheat. Firing them doesn't cause any shield damage, but overheating them does. Now these aren't particularly strong weapons. They will take about 5 full bursts to kill a Paris-class frigate, which is if you just hold it down until overheating 5 times. That's how many shots it takes to destroy a frigate. Because I don't want them to be too powerful, because they can kind of just reach out and touch anything within range. But they are also fixed forward, so if I'm angled in this direction and try fire over here, you can see I have to actually be facing towards the target, otherwise they go straight ahead. Just like that. Another cool mechanic that's now present on all Covenant ships is the ability to take short-range slipspace jumps. This is a part of the pulse lasers weapon. So if I click and hold, you can see it charges and then opens a slipspace portal, and it brings you forward by a decent distance. Now this slipspace jump is on a 100-second cooldown. The only downside to it currently is that any projectiles that were inbound towards you when you take the jump will still track you at the other end of the slipspace jump. So if a nuke is inbound on your position and you slipspace jump, it will turn around and start following you again. So I am thinking of creating a sort of a wake effect where the slipspace portal opens, so that any projectiles that are close by the wake will sort of detonate them as like a shockwave. And of course the cooldown is subject to change. I don't want it to be too frequent because it's quite strong. Allow me to show you how it looks from a distance. So it's quite a respectable distance that it teleports you, and the effect looks pretty cool too. So that's going to be a feature on all Covenant ships. The UNSC can't make slipspace jumps with that amount of accuracy, so they don't have that feature. I've also updated all the damage effects on every ship to now display how much damage it's taken more clearly. So at 50% hull strength, you will get one hull breach, and at 25% hull strength, a second hull breach will occur. These will initially be quite noticeable flames, and then after 20 seconds they will die down to a smaller stream. So this is how it looks when you're in a ship that's been critically damaged. So this is, both breaches are present, which means the hull is below 25%, and then as you see, flames are put out to some degree by the crew, and you are left with these smaller trails. And this is also the case on UNSC ships, as I'll demonstrate. So that's 50%, 25%. As you can see, they are visible from across the entire map. And then when the flames die down, they're still noticeable, but less so. They die down primarily for the sake of the players aboard, because that plume of fire would be getting in the way a little bit too much, the original plume of fire. So this is just a more manageable way of showing how much health it has left. Now, speaking of damage effects, I've also split the ADR-class Frigate into regions, similarly to how I did for the Point Blank and the Ion Carrier. That'll be an ongoing process for new ships, and eventually every ship will have the same region splits. So if I get rid of the shields here, if I hit the prow, you can see we get these impact marks. Port side here, get impact marks. You see I've almost killed the ship by shooting it as well. But we hit the engine there. And I also have the prow fin here. The mesh actually changes to a damaged version, just like that. So there's some pretty cool damage states going on for this ship. That's in addition to the telegraphed health condition of the ship with the plumes of fire as well. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't blow it up. Beautiful. I still want to add full-size chunks of debris to those explosions that incorporate actual parts of the ships, but that will probably be after release. I've also made all of the asteroids destructible. They all have different amounts of health depending on their size, and different kind of intensity of destruction effect depending on their size also. So we start with the smallest asteroids here. Not a particularly impressive explosion, but you know, it's a small rock. We go up in size then, a bit more impressive, like so. And the bigger we go, the more impressive the explosion, until we get to the biggest, which also takes the most amount of damage to destroy. So that's pretty neat. I want to make as much scenery as possible destructible, so things like the dry docks that you see in the Long Night of Solace mission, they will be destructible as well. They will actually make very good objectives for invasion game modes that the Covenant team have to blow up using the generator defense game type. The Megalo editing community on Halo Reach has done some really impressive game types. The stuff they can pull off is incredible, so I'm looking forward to taking advantage of that aspect. But yeah, so that's our asteroid destruction, and all of these asteroids that you see here are destructible, of course. They are just copies of each other. I've also now properly implemented ramming, so as you see here, ramming is now a valid way of destroying ships. The damage that ramming does is split into two categories, capital and escort. So the capital ships are more resilient to being rammed by escorts. In fact, if an escort rams a capital ship with full force, it is more likely to destroy itself rather than the rammed ship, but it will inflict still a great deal of damage. Whereas two cruiser types ramming each other will do decent damage to each other, but I don't think they're capable of one-shotting each other by ramming. Let me just test that here. The way ramming damage is calculated is a little confusing. Yeah, so you see that that was not lethal damage even though it was a full force hit. But they all cause ramming damage to each other in a domino effect there. It's quite devastating to both the rammer and the ram-E. I'll also demonstrate an escort ramming a capital ship here. For designation purposes, an escort in this mod is anything below cruiser size for the UNSC and anything below destroyer size for the Covenant. So these two ships are escorts. Point Blank to Paris are escorts. So as you can see, that was lethal. And let's check how much damage it did to the Halcyon. Reduce it to 52%, but some of that might have been contact with the ion carrier. So yeah, ramming a capital ship as an escort is not a guaranteed way of killing them, which is what I wanted. That would have been a little bit cheesy if it was the case. But you can see it's still quite effective at dealing hull damage, even if it does cost you your life. So the last thing I want to touch on in this video is the new role of the Covenant Corvette. Originally this was armed with plasma torpedoes. I've taken them away from it to keep it more in line with its lower armament. So its primary armament now are the plasma cannons. These do the same damage as a plasma torpedo. They fire faster, but they are unguided and you need to be rather close to get a lock with them. And they have a max range as well, which is not particularly long. So the Corvette can kind of fulfill 3 different roles. It can be sort of a close range assassin by taking advantage of slipspace jumps to get close to targets of opportunity. It can be a point defense or fleet defense ship because it has the most reliable pulse lasers out of any of the Covenant ships, the fastest firing and the slowest to overheat, like so. And it's also a light carrier as well. It carries strike craft. So I've changed the regular Covenant strike craft from Tarrasques to Seraphs. They fulfill the role of like a strafing harasser better than a Tarrasque. And the Tarrasques have now been made into a proper bomber, similar to how the longswords work on the Ion-class carrier. So if I launch these at this Paris frigate, you'll see it launches 2 Tarrasques, and after 10 seconds they will launch a fuel rod missile at their target. So we can have a look at that here. There goes one. There goes the other. Now these can be shot down by UNSC point defenses. They travel slower than the longsword missiles do, and they do a lot less damage than the longsword missiles as well. So you can see 2 of them will take the armor of a Paris class down to just below 50%. So that was an overview of the new ADR-class frigate for the Covenant, and a few other things besides. This coming week is going to be an exciting one for Slipspace. I think I am in a position to be able to host public playtesting this week. I will have an announcement about that in the coming days. I will also be releasing another video today of multiplayer gameplay. I hosted a private test session with 3 of my friends to see if everything was working, and I got some footage of that, so I'm going to upload that as a video and talk a bit about what was working, what wasn't, and how the mod is positioned going into the week of the planned test. I will also be putting together the Discord, the community Discord this week, ahead of the testing, and I will also make an announcement about that once it's ready. So stay tuned. It's going to be an exciting week for Slipspace, and I hope everybody is as excited about the multiplayer test as I am. Thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy the content and you want to follow along in the development of this mod, and stay tuned for more.